Thanks for joining us today for this webinar, A Recruiter's Guide to How to Ace an Interview. I'm Christy Martin. Thanks for those of you who are joining us. We are recording this session. We had several people sign up that I know were not able to um, be on the session live, but hope to get the recording of it. So that is being done just for your knowledge. And today we're just going to talk through some information that we've put together as my partner Beth Pittman and I were the co-owners of Skills Lab Training. We are recruiters by trade, and so we are really passionate about helping candidates, whether they're students or seasoned professionals, find their way in their career journey in just a less stressful and smoother fashion. And so we're really passionate about this topic and coach people on this topic all the time, which is why we wanted to put this together, especially for this group that we've invited today, which is high school, college, and university career advisors. And so let me just get started and tell you a little bit more about Skills Lab. Um, like I said, it was started by my partner, Beth Pittman, and I'm Christy Martin. We started Skills Lab in 2020, though we have been in the recruiting trade for the past 20 years each in our profession. And we started Skills Lab just to fill some gaps that we saw in helping candidates to secure jobs faster and with less stress. We put together resources, career coaching, and workshops that are aimed specifically at students, and then also ones aimed specifically for professionals to help them move on that career journey in a smoother way. And so we do that in a variety of ways. We are located in Bentonville, Arkansas, so right here in the center of the country and in the land of Walmart. We have a lot of experience working with the consumer goods industry and retail industries, obviously, but our experience really spans all industries across the country. So we have dabbled in a little bit of everything in our time as recruiters and human resource experts. So some of what we do to partner with students is we partner directly with students and parents who are coming to us asking for our help in getting their students on that road to securing a job or finding out what their career choices might be after graduation, after graduating high school, technical school, college. Variety of phases in that life and those big transitions. We also partner with schools. We partner with high schools and colleges in order to just kind of complement their career advisory services at the high school or college level. We know that resources are tight, and sometimes you just can't reach everybody as you would like to, or sometimes you have a downturn in staff, and we've come in and complemented or supplemented some of those career advisory services in cases like that as well. So we partner with schools on a variety of things. One, virtual career coaching. We do career coaching online with students that maybe schools want to give a little bit of extra attention to, certain majors or certain groups of students that schools want to lean in a little bit more with, or just some students that might be on the fringes or on that potential drop path, and they want to lean in and give those students some extra attention on helping them discover what their career path might be, all the way down to how do they interview well, maybe they're about to graduate, or how do they negotiate an offer. So we cover the full gamut with a student depending on where they're at. We also lead student workshops. We do a lot of these in person. We can do them virtually. We've also recorded them for classroom use in some cases. And so we do workshops, particularly around the topics of planning your career and assessing yourself and your skills and interests, your personal brand and how to network well, how to be a good intern or employee, depending on the audience that we're talking with, and how to really maximize, especially an internship, and get the most out of it. And then we talk a lot about how to stand out in an interview, which is some of what we'll talk about today. A third way that we partner with schools is we do a career advisor training. We have just taken our marketplace expertise in recruiting in the marketplace for so long and put that into kind of the key aspects that we would want candidates to know to present themselves to a hiring manager. And so we focused that for career advisors, again, at the high school, college, or university level, to help them just kind of walk through some of these elements. Maybe it's a refresher, maybe it's good for new career advisors that are in the role, or a group of kind of student or peer-led career advisory or coaching. I know some colleges have that. And so this would be great training for any of those kind of buckets of career advisors or coaches that might be at your school. And we're going to have one of these coming up in July that's going to be virtual. And so we'll talk more about that at the end of this session, if that might be of interest to you or your organization. Okay, so let's jump into it. Um, what are hiring managers looking for? We're going to stay on this slide for a bit and talk through some of these elements that hiring managers, as we've seen through our career, but it really hasn't changed that much as of late, what hiring managers want to see when they're interviewing candidates. We're going to start first with energy. This is so critical, and it starts with the very first interaction that a candidate has with that hiring manager, whether that be through emails, through text messages, or an actual phone conversation. They're really assessing that candidate's energy. They want to see someone who's excited to be there, who acts interested and seems informed about the opportunity or about the company. And then someone who's confident in their skills, someone who is confident in displaying their skills, talking about them in a way that relays to the hiring team that they have what they need and they're bringing that to the table, who's confident that they're going to bring something to that company that that company needs and that they're going to be an asset to that company. And so that confidence comes through as you speak about your skills. And just in the way that you relay yourself, which leads into the next one, talking about body language. So often their confidence is displayed through your body language and your nonverbal communication. Hiring managers are picking up on that. We definitely have hiring managers that will be interviewing a very tight slate of candidates and will come back to us and say, you know, this person or that person rose to the top just because of a feeling I had, or I just felt like they would be a fit, or that they would just bring some great energy into our organization, but all the candidates' skill sets were actually very similar. You would fall into that bucket a lot graduating from high school or college. You're up against a peer of candidate or a peer group that is going to have very similar majors, similar experiences, very light number of experiences. And so you're interviewing for that job where you are really in a tight pool from an experience or education standpoint with all the rest of the candidates. So these things like energy and body language become more critical to set you apart. And hiring managers are picking up on that. Hiring managers also know that when they're interviewing a group of students that are fresh out of high school or fresh out of college, that they are not having a lot of differentiators to choose from when they look at those students' backgrounds or experiences. And so they are leaning more on, it's really a tight slate of experience here. Who's going to bring the best energy, or who's going to bring that go-getter attitude, or who is really confident in the way that they display themselves? And I feel like those people will be able to move the needle a little bit more. And so looking at your body language, just starting with the same old things you've heard: firm handshakes, good eye contact, good posture when you're in the interview, not sitting slumped in the chair, or having your legs kind of splayed out. Really practicing some of these things, because it might be different than you would have as a body language in just a casual setting. And so if you're not in a lot of formal settings, which I would say more and more often, students these days are not necessarily in as many formal settings as they have been in past decades. And so this could be a point to practice some of these things, as far as how does your energy come across, and then what kind of body language are you displaying whenever you are in the room with a hiring manager. This also goes for professional appearance. Since the pandemic, professional appearance has taken quite a shift in what does that mean, and what does it mean inside companies, and maybe what does it mean from an interview standpoint, because candidates are now a little bit more confused. Should I wear a suit? they don't really wear suits at this company anymore. So should I wear one to the interview? Those are questions that we get so often, especially from students, and especially from students that may have never had to wear a suit anywhere else. And so this could be the only time they're going to actually purchase and wear something this professional. And so our advice to students is always dress up more than you think you need to be. Don't try and figure out what they wear at that office and match that vibe. Just go ahead and wear the suit. We still recommend that students and professionals look their best whenever they go in for an interview. This is your first or a very early impression, and you want them to be seeing the best from you. And so that often relays in what you're wearing. And so we will even be on coaching calls with students where they're holding up things in the background. Is this appropriate? What about this kind of a tie? Things like that. And we're coaching students on that kind of thing, actually looking at the wardrobe that they're thinking about wearing and advising them on where they could get those kind of items that really doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg, but will really up your game as an interviewer compared to maybe someone who did not take the time to do that. So body language and appearance definitely shows your confidence and is a big part of the energy that you're displaying as well. From there, we always advise our candidates to match your skills with what the company is looking for. That comes from reviewing the job description, and then also some research about the company. But first and foremost, we push a candidate back to the job description to see what kind of skills and requirements that company needs, and then figure out how your skills match what they need. Use the same words that they're using. Look for buzzwords repeatedly. If there's multiple jobs posted with that company, maybe look at a few job descriptions and see if you can find the buzzwords that they're using over and over. Using those words is really going to hit some light bulbs with that hiring team because they are looking for those things. So you want to show how your skills match what the company is looking for specifically from the job description. From there, you can give specific examples of how your skills match those needs. And that comes from looking at your experiences and really diving in and finding the crossover points, the transfer points from where your experience leans into what they are saying that they need, even if it's not directly the exact same experience. So if they're looking for experience analyzing sales data using Excel, and you've never analyzed sales data before, but you have experience using Excel in a pretty intermediate or advanced way, you've just done it with other types of data, then you're going to want to draw the connection between those two experiences. That is a very common thing that we work with candidates on, and we hear from hiring managers. Hiring managers will be going into that looking for something very specific, but if you can draw the connections and the lines for them between what you've done and how that will help them in this job, they will quickly get on that train with you. Oftentimes, hiring managers are not drawing those lines themselves. And so it falls into the bucket of the candidate to be able to draw the connection points for a hiring manager. And we hear that from hiring managers actually coming back to us saying, wasn't sure if their skill set was going to be the right fit, or when I read their resume, I really didn't feel hopeful about this being the exact candidate that I needed. But once I talked to them, they were able to show me. They were able to give me specific examples that squelched any apprehension that I had. And so we often coach candidates on how do they get those specific examples ready to go, anticipate what a hiring manager is going to be looking for and ask them about, and then be prepared and armed with those specific examples. And so again, we push them back to the job description, and then some additional research on the company, which takes me into that next box of company knowledge. Researching the company and the interviewers in advance can really set you apart. And we have seen this secure opportunities for candidates over and over again. One, it is very flattering for the hiring team or hiring manager to know that you did some research on them. It could seem a little like you were a little nosy or maybe looking at things that you shouldn't have or going a little bit too far in your research. But oftentimes, hiring managers are very flattered to see that you took the time to look at their background on LinkedIn, to draw any connections that you found between you and them. Maybe, oh my gosh, we both went to Kansas State. Or we both actually volunteer at these organizations, at Big Brothers Big Sisters. I didn't That's great to know that you're also passionate about that organization. And so drawing those little connections usually is a very flattering point for the hiring team. And then research in the company just helps them to know that you are interested and informed, back to what we've already talked about, that you've taken the time to really look into their company, look into their products, research, whether you're doing that on Google, LinkedIn, you're looking at social media for the company, that you've taken the time to understand the opportunity that you're walking into and the position that you're interviewing for. That gives them an automatic ease that you understand and you're very interested, that you wouldn't be sitting here if you had found out things that turned you off. And so researching the company and the interviewers can really help them to show, or really help them to see you're interested, you're knowledgeable, and you also are potentially a good fit just from your interest and passion for what they're doing. They want people that share their passion and their interest in the company or the products or the people that they're serving. And so you walking in the door, showing them that by the time that you've taken to dig into things, can really set you apart and again help you ace that interview. And you do want to show that knowledge and interest, figure out little ways as a candidate to interject those things within the conversation, whether that's throwing out maybe in the early stages. Hey, I was looking at your background and I noticed that we both volunteer for Big Brothers Big Sisters. That I am so passionate about that organization. And that automatically draws a connection or a little heart connection with that person. They're going to remember that. They're going to remember you as a candidate, and it shows that you did your research. And then you might show your interest or your knowledge in the kind of questions that you craft at the end of the interview. So you may have crafted some questions around certain things that you found in the news about that company, or something that you found that was interesting about their products, or um, about something new that they've innovated. And so you crafting a question that shows, I did my research and I found this, and I'd like to know more about it. They're going to be very flattered that you did that, and that it just shows that I did my homework, and that's going to set you apart from people who definitely did not do that. Down at the bottom, we're going to talk about soft skills. This is definitely the hot buzz around these types of skills. I attend panels a lot and listen to hiring managers talk about what kind of skills they're looking for from candidates, or what they're looking for that attracts them to a candidate in an interview. These are the skills that usually come up. I was listening to a panel last week of hiring managers, and these were the skills that they rattled off. And so many of these have been the same over time. But they're looking at this new generation of workers in a bit different way. And how are they honing these skills, and how deeply have they honed these skills? So curiosity is one of the main ones that we hear from hiring managers that they're looking for. They're looking for you to display again in those specific examples of how you've used your skills, how you were curious, how you went beyond just what somebody told you to do, or what the SOP said to do, but you were curious to figure out, why do we do that? How does it impact the rest of the production line or the other people in the other departments? Could I sit in that meeting and learn more about that subject because now I'm really interested? Could I go talk with someone in another department to really get a feel for how is what I'm doing affect what they do? That's the kind of curiosity that hiring managers are looking for. This panel last week was just raving about specific examples of interns that they've had that mindset, and they loved seeing it. They loved seeing that person want to meet with other departments, want to ask questions, want to dig into how does this all work together, and not just take things for face value. a flexible mindset kind of goes along with that. So being flexible enough and curious enough to say, maybe the way I'm thinking about it is not the only way or the absolute right way. I'm flexible enough to consider other opportunities, to consider other opinions, and be collaborative. Collaboration is a big piece of, especially showing some leadership traits. That we work with a lot of candidates on, and so being flexible enough to collaborate, open your mind a little bit, and also be a steward of change. Change is inevitable in any organization. It's very natural to have some resistance to change. And being flexible or having an open, flexible mindset displays that you can address change, you can move through any resistance that you might have, and that you can be open to a change in how it might be better for the organization or move you in a different direction. So displaying that again through the examples that you give about your skills, about your experience is really going to set off a hiring manager and say, gosh, this is somebody that I think we need on our team. Having a learner mindset, knowing, especially as a student, that you're walking in with not necessarily everything under your belt, that you have a lot to learn still, even though you may have just checked the box on this degree, that you still have a lot to learn as you walk into an organization. So having a learner mindset that you're going to kind of maybe even lay low for the first 30, 60 days and really just soak it all in. Learn as much as you can, gather as much information and data as you can, but also approach new things or different opinions, um, different feedback with a mindset of how can I learn from this? How can I grow? How can I adjust what I'm doing? So figuring out where you've done that in the past, whether that was within a classroom setting, in a team project that you had, or from a work experience, and again, displaying those things as you answer questions. Being a problem solver, definitely a big one. They want to see people that can solve problems and that can look again with that curious mindset and bring problems maybe to the table, but not just identify problems, bring some sort of potential solution. Could not be the right solution, but it's a potential one. And so they're looking for a problem solver who can surface things that they might see, address red flags, but then bring those solutions to the table and be collaborative to talk about those. And then being reliable, for sure. They're looking for somebody who has displayed showing up on time, showing up for their shift, um, being reliable to be there and ready to work. Not necessarily just showing up, but being present and ready to do your job. And so, as you can display those things from either volunteer experiences, work experiences, or just school track record, those kind of things bode well with hiring managers. And they want to see that, especially when they're looking at hiring students or former students. And then communication is the last one. Communication again starts from that very beginning stage of you submitting your application. And so there's some nonverbals there of how easy is it to get a hold of you? If they're emailing you, calling, or texting, are you returning those things in a timely manner? Are you returning those within minutes or hours? Or is it 2 days and then they hear back from you? That gives an automatic sign of your energy and your interest in the position. If you're easy to get a hold of, if you're returning calls and texts and emails quickly, and then if you're doing that with professional language, again, this could be something that you need to practice from having that professional language that you might not be so used to using in all settings. Um, Even having language that or a dialect that people can understand. If you students have a heavy accent, we have had hiring managers come back to us with concerns about well, their accent is very heavy. I'm not sure if they'll be able to communicate well with the rest of the team, or if the team will struggle to understand them, that might slow us down. And so, even working with a student that might have some of those hurdles on how they're communicating, and then also how confident their tone is. Hiring managers looking for a confident tone, which is, can we hear you? Can we understand you? Are you speaking with confidence? Again, with your body language, your posture, all of that plays into that. But we've all heard people speak up in situations and their tone was very silent and they were hard to understand. You had to ask them to repeat themselves. That is absolutely not what a hiring manager wants to see. They want to see someone come in with a confident tone that they can hear and understand, and they're going to, just give them kind of markers of what they can expect from you long term. And then your follow up after an interview, which we're going to dive a little bit more into, is how can you follow up well to make you, again, fall top of the radar in these situations and set you apart from candidates in the future. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to put those in the chat. I'm going to kind of keep everybody muted until the end. If we have some time for some live questions, I'll definitely answer those. But if you have some you want to throw in the chat, don't hesitate to do that, and we will get to those as we can. Okay, so what can students be doing now that really is going to help them ace these interviews, even if they are a sophomore, junior, and they're not really thinking about or in a heavy interview cycle? They can still be doing a lot of things that are going to prepare them for this really heavy time of finding that job, whether it's right at graduation or soon after. One thing they can be doing is just keeping their grades up, concentrating on their grades. There are many companies that we've worked with will put a concentration on GPA as with their hiring students, and then that tends to fall off as you get into your professional career. But if that is a concentration for a company that you really desire to work at, then make sure you're keeping those grades up. It would be a shame to work on a lot of other things and then really get knocked out of the running at the very end because your grades fell below a certain GPA that they wanted to consider. Doing internships or any kind of work experience definitely is going to hit a lot of the hot buttons and help you to practice the things that we just talked about on the last slide. Internships are absolutely something that hiring managers want to see on a resume, and they're going to dig into those and ask you about them. So, in an internship, you want to make sure that you're maximizing that experience. Um, you don't want to, be asked about an internship by our hiring manager and say, actually, they didn't have much for me to do, and I just ended up getting people lunch a lot, and I was really just kind of boring. They want to know how you maximize that experience, how maybe you were curious, how you dug in, how you were a learner, how you made that an experience that actually worked for you. And so doing that in internships or work experiences can really set up a lot of these answers that you're going to give during an interview process. Just volunteering, leadership opportunities, kind of rounding out your skill set that way, whether you're finding leadership opportunities in clubs or organizations, or you're able to do some volunteer opportunities that you do consistently enough to where you can take the lead on some things. That's all giving you great things to talk about, great practice on some of these soft skills, and just good experiences that you're going to want to use in an interview. Practicing the engagement piece. That is that body language, the confidence that you display, the energy that you display, practicing putting the phone down, having eye contact as you're talking with somebody, having that good posture, looking alert and projecting good energy. Uh, Students might not always be in a lot of opportunity to practice these things or a lot of settings where they need to be doing this on a heightened level. And so it could be good to challenge students on what are one or two places, maybe it's one certain class or a teacher that appreciates that, or it's a competition that you're going to within a club or an organization that you really need to be on your A game, just like in an interview. And so those are the places I want you to practice this really heavily and come back and let's talk about how did that go for you? And did you notice any difference? Did anybody say anything to you about it? So look for those ways to practice engagement. Asking thoughtful questions is another one. You're asking questions as a part of a classroom setting automatically, but are they thoughtful or are they more tactical? Just how do I check the boxes? How do I do this, and get it done to completion? Thoughtful questions are the learner questions, the curiosity questions, the practice asking those. And that's just, again, good practice as you get into those interview settings where they're going to want to hear you ask thoughtful questions, especially at the end of the interview. Attending network events, this can really hone that skill as well as around asking good questions. Attending network events is just good practice for a lot of things, soft skills, your engagement, posture and confidence. uh, building connections, practicing an elevator pitch. So many things can come out of some great networking events. And so helping students to just practice that skill, even setting that up for students, is a key place that they can just check a lot of boxes at one time. And then building a skill toolbox. So as you look with students down that career path where they want to go, what kind of jobs they're interested in, what kind of companies they're interested in, um, think about the skill toolbox that they need. Are there any skills that you know that company is going to be looking for or that job's going to require that that student is missing? How do they use that junior sophomore year to hone that toolbox so that when they get to that interview place, they've got a full toolbox to work with. And they have built that missing tool in the years prior so that they're really able to talk about all of the pieces that a hiring manager wants to see. So how can students stand out? We've talked about this a little bit already, but preparation is so key. Um, we've seen so many candidates ace interviews because they have done their research, and companies appreciate that so much, and it really will set you apart from other candidates that didn't do that research. And so looking at a company's website is the first line of defense, basically looking through their website in a very thorough manner. Look at the About Us page, look at the team leadership page, look at the different products or services that they're offering, look at their locations. Oh, you look at that page and think, I didn't know that they had 3 plants across the country. I thought they were just here in my hometown. And so looking at the company website in a really thorough manner is the first step that we always push candidates to. Then going to LinkedIn, looking at the company's page on LinkedIn, looking at all the people that work at that company and the kinds of backgrounds. You may see a lot of engineers or a lot of creative people or some backgrounds that might surprise you. I didn't know they even had this kind of a position at that company. You're looking at job titles. You're just getting a really good overview of what kind of jobs are there, what kind of backgrounds are they looking for, how many people work there that are connected to them on LinkedIn. You're finding a lot of good information and insights just by looking at the company on LinkedIn. And then you'll want to use LinkedIn to review the hiring manager's background or information. So if you get that interview invite and it's got 3 names on there of people that are going to be in that interview, those are the 3 names you want to be looking up. And you want to look at their backgrounds. Where have they come from? How long have they been with the company? What school did they go to, or what kind of degree might they have? What kind of career trajectory have they had? Some of those interest pieces are good, just connection points with people. But that gives you clues into this is the kind of background this person has that's hiring me. And so they're going to value things that are maybe similar. And again, how do those intersect with the job description? And so you're finding a lot of good insights by looking at those people's backgrounds that are going to be interviewing you. Google them, look for news articles on the company. This could be good stuff and it could be bad stuff. Could be that they went through a bankruptcy 2 years ago. And so that might be something that you'd want to ask about or a thoughtful question to say, just stumbled on that information and wondered how things are progressing since that time, or what have you done to make changes within the company? Um, what's the trajectory look like now? So Googling them, finding good articles, this can even just be industry information. Hey, this industry is really hot right now. Can you tell me how you're keeping up with competition or how you're, looking at some of your competition and what you're doing differently? Looking at the industry is key as well. Maybe even going to their place of business or looking at their products. Going to the business before you have to interview, one, just sets you up for success that you know where you're going and you know how to get in there. And two, looking at their products. I mentioned that we are located in Bentonville, Arkansas, and so we have worked a lot with consumer goods companies, and so it is very commonplace if you interview with a new company, you are going to the Walmart or Sam's Club to look at the products on the shelf. You're looking at their product placement, what kind of shelf space do they have? What do the competitors' packaging look like? You're reading the product labels. You're really looking at all the aspects of that person's product within the setting that they're selling it in. Um, But then also going to that business in advance, I'll give you a personal story. My first job out of college was with the Walmart headquarters, and that's a massive place. I didn't have a lot of experience going up to that building, and so I should have taken a trip up there to make sure I knew where the front door was when I went for the interview, but I didn't do that. I did arrive in plenty of time, but once I arrived at the building, I didn't find a clear front door. There was lots of doors. And so as I arrived, I thought, well, I'll pick the door that looks like the front to me. And that actually wasn't the front door. So once I called into the person that was supposed to pick me up for the interview, it took them 5 or 10 minutes to figure out which door I was at, and then walk the extra, seems like a mile within that organization, to get me from that door, and then go back to the meeting room where they had set up for us to meet. And so that ate into my interview time, 10 or 15 minutes. I did get the job, but I was so embarrassed. It's not a good feeling to start out an interview embarrassed, or feeling like you've now got this shorter window of time to talk and present yourself because of those just logistical mistakes. So, doing that kind of research to understand where you're going is key as well. And then crafting some thoughtful questions based on all this research. So all these things you've found out, you're going to want to figure out, how do I weave any of those into the answers I might want to give? Or how do I just ask some great questions that I know they're not going to answer during the interview process? I'm going to get to the end. They're going to say, do you have any questions? And I'm going to have two or three that are based on my research that I know we're not going to have already talked about. And hiring managers absolutely want to see that. And then it's also going to show that you did your research. Okay, what are the best interview tips that you've ever given to your clients? We do give a lot of the similar ones to clients, but wanted to throw these out and so that you can use them with students as well. Our first one is, everyone that you meet is interviewing you. We do have a good story about this one. We had a hiring manager that would interview candidates, and then as soon as the interview was over, he would go out to the receptionist and ask how that person interacted with that receptionist. He was very interested to know how the candidates interacted with everyone through the entire process. He wanted to know what the recruiter's interaction with them was, if they were treated kindly, if they had good communication, if through the entire process, no matter who they were meeting, that they had a confidence and an energy and a kindness that matched up with the company culture. And so he was getting lots of touch points on that. So everyone you meet is interviewing you through every stage of the process. So consider that as you're talking with people along the way. Again, firm handshakes, make eye contact, good posture, all of those will go a long way and may even set you apart from, that tight candidate pool. Saying thank you and following up. Um, this goes along with the one on the bottom of that. If you want the job, tell them. So at the end of the interview, it's so often to, you're just saying thank you for having me, things like that. We often see candidates that will leave that room without actually giving an clear message that they are very interested in the job. This is a job I would love to do. This is a company I'm really excited to work with. And so if you don't say some of those things, it can leave the hiring manager in a place where they're not sure. We've had hiring managers come back to us as recruiters and say, I really love their feedback because I just really didn't get a good read on if they would like to do this job or not. When we talk to the candidate, they say, absolutely, this is the job for me. Like, I'm so excited. I really hope that this is moving to the next step. And we ask them, did you say that in the interview? Did you give them an indication that you're really excited about this job? I'm not sure that I did. And so hiring managers want to hear that. Again, saying thank you at the end and telling them how much you want this job and you're very excited about the opportunity. And then following up. And we'll talk a little bit in a future slide about how to follow up well after an interview. Doing your homework, again, everything we've just talked about, being prepared, asking thoughtful questions, showing that you're interested and you did your research, and then projecting good energy. So, and all of these are our best tips because we've seen that set someone apart from an interview panel or from an interview slate. They have moved ahead or really it's come down to very small things, and some of these things have set them over the top. So that's turned into our best tips. So I wanted to talk briefly about, all of these tips and things, but how can you help students prepare for interviews a little bit better? Because you've got all these tips and things you want them to know, but then how do I, as a career advisor, help them to really prepare well? And what could I do with them from a tactical standpoint to prepare? First part is an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is used in so many different contexts. You have so much opportunity to practice this for years and years before you really need to start rattling it off in interview settings on a regular basis. And so working with students on simple formulas to develop an elevator pitch, and then giving them some accountability maybe to come back and ask how that's going, how have you used it, how have you altered it in different settings with different people that you're meeting, because you're going to alter it a little bit if you're meeting a new professor at your university versus you're meeting somebody in a networking setting versus an interview. And so really we boil it down to three questions for our candidates of: where have you been, where are you currently, and where are you going? So being able to tell somebody um, your name, and maybe I'm Christy Martin, I'm from Bentonville, Arkansas, and I am a career coach. And then where have you been? I started my career at the Walmart headquarters. I've worked in recruiting, career coaching, and human resources for most of my career. Where am I currently? I own a company called Skills Lab Training. And I love to pour into candidates and help them navigate their career with less stress. And then where am I going? Hey, I'm at this event really looking to connect with people in this kind of industry, or I'm looking for people who could help me with this. Or I am very interested in learning more about A, B, or C. So where am I going? What am I looking for? Um, so it's a simple formula that I think students and candidates can latch onto and just figure out, how do I alter that based on the actual setting that I'm in. And elevator pitches, like I said, can be used so many places. You can really practice these over and over, and then that will help you walk into an interview feeling really confident about how you rattle off about yourself, which is always the first question. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Um, as a recruiter, I have talked with candidates who will take that question and talk for 10 minutes. And that is not what you want to do. You want to be able to have a succinct overview of yourself or your elevator pitch that you can start off the conversation. They know a little bit about you and where you've been and where you're looking to go, and get on to the next question. If you're still talking about yourself with 10 minutes in, that person has usually lost interest. The hiring manager has lost interest, and they are wondering when you're going to stop so they can get to the questions that they actually would like to ask. And so helping students to figure out how to do this elevator pitch succinctly and really understand what's the most important information that that person, whoever that is, at a career fair, a networking event, or you're just kind of meeting the boss's boss in the hallway, um, wants to know about you. So working with students on elevator pitch can be so valuable. Career fairs are another way that you get a lot of good practice, a lot of opportunity to network, and really can hone some skills before you get into a maybe serious job hunt. And so attending career fairs, both inside and outside of your organization or your college or high school, is really beneficial. We push students a lot to attend career fairs, even if they're not in a serious job hunt at that time, because it is just such good practice. Walking in and just knowing how to navigate that setting with being prepared with copies of your resume, how you dress when you go to a career fair, booking advanced appointments if you need to, being able to collect business cards and then follow up with those people later, starting that LinkedIn network that you want to hone for the rest of your career. This is where it starts. You're collecting those business cards, you're connecting with people on LinkedIn, you're following up if you might need to. If you go to a career fair and talk with the recruiter from Tyson Foods all 4 years of your college, and then finally your senior year, you're talking with probably that same recruiter at Tyson Foods, they're going to remember you. They're going to see that motivation, that interest, I remember how many times you've come by my booth and now you're actually looking for a job after graduation. We need to talk. And so those kind of connections are going to come back and help you in the long run. And then just taking advantage of any other industry or community events can be really good practice as well on, again, soft skills, elevator pitch, confidence, energy level. Career fairs are really low, especially if you're not in that serious job hunt, just kind of a low risk way to hone some of those skills. And how can you stand out at a career fair? We work with college students a lot, particularly on how to stand out at career fairs and do a lot of coaching in advance of kind of career fair season at colleges. Researching the companies in advance, identifying which companies you want to talk with, and then preparing the questions that you might want to ask those people. So really honing in on who's going to be here and where are the booths that I want to hit, because these are the companies that have jobs that interest me the most. Attending the information sessions or pre-mixers, again, an opportunity to hone some of your networking skills, but also you get double the exposure to some of the companies that are at those pre-mixers and then also at the fair. You might get more attention even, or more of an opportunity to talk with them on a one-to-one basis. Following up after the fair, LinkedIn, email connections, collect all those cards and then connect back on LinkedIn. Remind them that you talked to them at the fair, and or something personal that you may have shared that they would remember. You could put that in the message as well. And then booking personal interviews. So if there's an opportunity to book an interview, maybe it's not for a specific job, but it's a get to know you type session where you can hone in more on your skills, but then also what are they offering? And that personal interview is again going to make that connection a bit tighter and help you to just kind of make more of that deep, long lasting piece with that company, especially if it's someplace you really want to work. And mock interviews as well. We work with students a lot on mock interviewing, and I'm sure you do too. And so here's some of the things that we do when we work through those things, but reviewing the generalized questions, but then looking at more industry specific questions and how do we mock that through with a student. We also push students a lot to use great software that many schools have access to, where they'll record you and then analyze the interview or the question and send you a score, and push students back to using all of those resources because they're so great. There's so many professionals we work with that would tell you they would utilize that stuff in a heartbeat if they had access to it. Um, Giving students real genuine feedback is really, really key. And that's why they're coming to you. You're a neutral party that they want that feedback from. They're going to take it better from you because you're in a position of more authority to kind of give them the feedback, maybe versus a friend or even a parent. And so giving students genuine feedback is really key. And then helping them to develop some of those interview stories, those tell me about a time stories, those specific examples that are going to draw the connections between their skills and what the company is looking for. And so then we want to kind of end up here on how can I leave a lasting impression after the interview? This is so key because they are maybe interviewing 4, 5, 8 candidates for this position. Their interview process might be dragging out another month after they talk with you, just depending on the timing of everything. So you do want to follow up in a way that keeps you top of mind, that is going to again express your interest and your enthusiasm about the company and the position. And that kind of lets them know that, hey, I'm still in this and I'm still very interested, even though this has maybe gone out a little bit longer than I expected. So some ways that you can do that are, one, by preparing yourself with the questions, being exactly what they're looking for, and then you might remind them of some of that. Or you might have walked away from the interview thinking, I should have told them more about that thing or about that skill set that I have. follow-up could be a time to succinctly do that, even in an email saying, hey, thanks for the opportunity. I'm really appreciated the time and very excited about the position. I just wanted to address one thing that I don't feel like I got to talk very much about, and it's this skill set that I have, or this experience that you mentioned that I actually have expertise in. And so a few sentences about that will just at least prompt them to say, oh, that kind of answers a little question or a gap that we saw. Or maybe I want to press more into that. Maybe we should get them back in here and talk more about that item, since we didn't get to talk about it. So follow up emails, um, even text messages, if that's the way you've been communicating with somebody, could be appropriate. Handwritten notes definitely are still appropriate, but often they don't get to them in a timely manner anymore, depending on the size of the organization. Um, and so that could even arrive too late. And so we tend to push people to go with an email at least, to just follow up. And then we tell people to follow up about once a week to check the status, unless they've given you another time frame, unless they've said, hey, I'm leaving the country for 3 weeks, there won't be anything happening, then you'd know to follow up in 3 weeks. But following up traditionally about once a week to check the status is a good way to keep you top of mind and just let them know I'm still here and I'm still interested. And then as well, if you have any network connections or current employees that work for that company that might be, able to provide a reference or just put a little note in that hiring manager's ear, about your skill set or how great it is to work with you or your positive energy that you bring, those can really help. We had a candidate that enacted this on a position, as of late. They interviewed for the position, and then after their interview, I think even before the interview, they had network connections and referrals coming into the hiring manager, continually. And they did have a tight connection already with the hiring team, so they knew their email address and things like that. But so after they interviewed, that hiring manager was continuing to tell us as the recruiters, I'm still getting notes and phone calls about this person. And so that was just bringing that person top of mind over and over and over. And it was just layering on one reference after another, even before they had done any reference checking on this person. And so it did bode well for that candidate to just use some of their connections to make sure that that hiring manager had a good picture of, who they were and what they brought to the table and how much people liked working with them. So. So this is going to kind of end up the presentation. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. Happy to talk through those. Lastly, I did want to tell you more about this Career Advisor, virtual training workshop that we're having in July. This is perfect for high school, college, and university career coaches and advisors. Could be also appropriate for some, career and technical educators if you feel like someone is not necessarily a coach, but educates on a certain trade and they could benefit from this. It's a 4 hour training that we teach, just specifically for this group, and we'll cover all of the main points from helping students focus in on career choices and helping them identify how their skill set, matches up with, those opportunities after they, are graduating, and down to how do you craft a great resume. All of our tips on crafting a great resume. We'll get into elevator pitch a little bit more, the ins and outs of resumes, then do's and don'ts that you are going to want to know that won't get you hung up in an applicant tracking system, things like that. We'll go into job search and networking, the different avenues that you would have to job search, how you can do that most effectively, and then dive into networking a lot more. How can you network well? We'll dive into LinkedIn and how can you utilize that in a more advanced way, in a way that even recruiters are using LinkedIn, to research people and really find out information and do all that research before you interview. And then we'll talk about interviewing techniques again that help students stand out. So again, this is perfect for those coaches and advisors that may be new to your team. Maybe you haven't done some training in a while as a team and you want to go through this. It's really affordable, and we wanted to make it so just as a way to kind of give back during this summertime to, people that we feel like are carrying the load at universities and high schools and helping all these students get to where they need to be. So it is just $97 a person. You can register on our website, and so I'm going to put that in the chat right now, as far as where to go to register, and click through and see if that's something that would be appropriate for your organization.